Hi everyone, my name is Josie. I use she, her pronouns, and I am presenting with my partner Lindsey, who's actually studying abroad this semester. So we have truly been utilizing Zoom and are very grateful for it during this time. We are both students at Rider University in Lawrenceville, New Jersey. I'm an elementary education and dance studies major, class of 2022, and Lindsey is a management and leadership major, class of 2023. We are both so excited and grateful to have this opportunity to share our presentation, Empathy in the Writing Center, an essential element of tutoring's dynamic future. Thank you so much for your time and your attention as we share our presentation. The global pandemic of 2020 completely eliminated the separation between the home and school environment. Tutors entered through the once remained closed doors, causing home, which is a place of comfort and relaxation, to now be associated with work and being productive. The nation completely adjusted to working, living, and operating in a pandemic. We have been living with COVID-19 as a new normal, focusing on adapting and pushing through instead of just pausing to mourn. Tutors are facing the difficult challenge of keeping students engaged during a tutor session because now, when students enter tutor sessions, so does their pandemic-related trauma. While virtual tools play a role in boosting engagement, perhaps the most necessary component to enter a tutor session with is empathy. Empathy is essential in tutoring. Tutor training should focus on educating tutors about empathy because tutors who are given the proper tools to develop and demonstrate empathy will serve as role models, both inside and outside of writing sessions, which will then make tutoring a transformative experience. So I'm now going to pass this presentation over to Lindsey.
Hi everyone, my name is Lindsey Mulrooney. I am a junior at Rider, and I'm going to be introducing the second part of our presentation, taking over from Josie's wonderful thoughts. So by now, we've clearly established the importance of empathy in tutoring, but it's not as simple as just looking for tutors that have an empathetic nature or skill. Lots of qualified and competent tutors may not have a strong level of comfort with this topic. And so what we argue in our presentation is that empathy should be a part of tutor training. Just like we offer training in questioning strategies, we can offer training in empathetic demonstrations and how to have empathy as a tutor to our students. But how do you actually do that? That can be a difficult question. So before we influence your thoughts and ideas, if you would like, please pause our presentation, scan this QR code, and share some of your thoughts with us and others as well. So we have many methods that we'll discuss in our presentation today. This here is just a short outline of them, but some ways we think you can integrate empathy into your tutor training in very tangible ways. So the first one we'll discuss are campus resources. So when building our proposal and our presentation, we established a survey that asked questions to 30 of our tutors across different areas of our writing center and also our entire academic success center. So also content tutors for regular class materials like math, science, and other subjects. And one of the questions we asked them, you can see here, had to do with their understanding and comfort referring students to campus resources. Think of counseling services, accessibility services, things like that. And we were pleased that a majority of students actually did feel both comfortable referring students and like they had a clear understanding of resources. But we found that this was only a small majority. So nearly half of our tutors didn't feel comfortable or knowledgeable enough to refer students to other campus resources. So what we recommend actually is finding a way to collaborate with other departments on campus in tutor training to make tutors aware of what resources are available to students and also how and when to have discussions with students about accessing these resources. Because we understand that tutors may not be able to provide things like emotional support and deal with complex issues that students face. But being able to comfortably refer them to other campus resources can help the students access the help they need and can help tutors navigate a difficult situation while also redirecting to the task at hand, which is also helpful because I've found that many tutors are by nature empathetic and may try to take on these roles and responsibilities that are outside of their role as a tutor. So accessing these resources can help them stay a tutor, but still provide the help to the students that they need. The next thing we want to discuss is empathetic discussion training. And what we mean by this is actually having workshops or mock sessions in which students practice discussing over email or in person how to have an empathetic discussion with students. And to give you an example of what this might look like, we found from our survey that a common issue, especially in the virtual world, that was reported by tutors was that often students ask them to do the work for them rather than to help them through tutoring. And this was a difficult situation as many students in this virtual world were experiencing hardships they'd never had before. And tutors were frustrated because, as much as they understood and empathized with these students, and wanted to help them. Not only is it not allowed to do work for students, but it's not productive for their learning or their growth as individuals. And it really goes against what the entire point of a tutoring session would be for a student. But this can be hard to explain to a student in a way that's both authoritative and kind. So, helping students understand how to address these issues, how to empathetically discuss what either falls in their roles or outside of their roles, or just have a difficult conversation in a way that's beneficial to them and the student and helps maintain their relationship with the student as a tutor is something very tangible that can help tutors be prepared for situations like these that arise in a writing center. The next thing we want to discuss is rapport building because we found from our survey that rapport building is something that is extremely powerful. It's one of the tools that are used most effectively by empathetic tutors, but it's very minimally time consuming. As you can see, most of our tutors only rapport build for about 1 to 5 minutes in a session. And this is really important to the students as well. So what we've found through our personal experiences is that many students expressed feeling that tutoring was more effective if they had a relationship with their tutor, if they felt their tutor cared and was genuinely invested in them and their work and how they've grown. And so one of the things we'd like to impart is actually having practice workshops on rapport building. So, helping tutors learn how to do this successfully, offering them tools to use, doing workshops to help them practice this small but important and valuable part of the tutoring session. And many of our tutors actually suggested tools, things like polls and surveys, asking questions about students' school related lives, things like games to get them engaged with the session and really helping tutors understand how to use these in a way to establish relationships well. And so it's a really effective part of their session. And if you'd like, you can take a moment, pause our presentation, and look up some of these tools listed here, suggested by our tutors in our survey. We think they could be very beneficial for you. And speaking of tools, we have some other things we want to discuss here as well. So tools for engagement. Something that came up a lot in especially virtual learning, as we know, is this thing that I call the camera question. So, should students be required to put their cameras on? And how do you adjust the session to adapt for that loss of body language and eye contact? And, how do you deal with this as a tutor and also as a student? And so from our survey, we found that most tutors agreed that really forcing a student to put their camera on, even if it gets you eye contact and body language, it doesn't get you more engagement. Most students will actually feel more uncomfortable and actually disengage from the session. So we recommend training students to use the tools they have to engage with students in a way that doesn't need a camera, that actually learning how to adapt to this cameraless form of tutoring is an act of empathy. And some of the methods that we wanted to highlight here are teaching tutors how to use questioning strategies when they may not have a lot to go off of in response, such as body language. So learning how to adapt questioning strategies to a chat box or an audio call, how to use tools like virtual whiteboards or document collaboration apps for things like free writing, if you want to engage students in sharing their writing without any limitations and know that they're actually doing work, but not having to watch them as they work physically. Also, things like polls and surveys, which are often built right into the video calling platforms we use, can be used to engage students. And of course, how does this connect with in-person tutoring? How do we utilize these tools? And of course, we know that in-person tutoring will be returning in some capacity, but also virtual tutoring is definitely here to stay. And while the tools that you use in person may not need to change as much as you have that physical presence, it's still important to recognize this principle of sort of meeting students in the middle and helping them feel comfortable in a session and adapting the tools to what those students need in the moment and having that empathy to understand them and meet them in the middle, as we've said. If you would like to take a moment, you can pause the screen and you can scan this QR code and share your thoughts with us as well. Any tools or strategies, whether virtual or in person, we would love to hear them. And the last thing we want to talk about is establishing boundaries. So most of our previous topics have been really focused on showing the tutor how to demonstrate empathy to the student. Here, I want to focus on the tutor demonstrating empathy to themselves. So what is the tutor truly responsible for? Helping a tutor understand how to really balance what they're responsible for and how to focus on themselves is really important. So, for example, as we discussed earlier, when it comes to empathetic discussions, being able to politely decline things that fall outside of their responsibilities, or also being able to decline things that fall within their responsibilities, but put too much of a demand on them, and also helping them know when and how to reach out to supervisors or mentors if they need help balancing their session load or if they need help with a student situation that they're out of their depth in. Because the one thing we really just want to impart here is that not only should tutors be trained to demonstrate empathy toward others, they should be trained to demonstrate empathy toward themselves. Because really, in general, not just in empathy, but in all aspects, you can't always be the most effective tutor that you are if you're giving too much of your time and energy and kindness away to others. And really, we just want tutors to understand that empathy should never come at the expense of oneself. So, as we wrap up our presentation, I just want to share some brief final thoughts with you. I am someone who had a very fortunate virtual learning experience. I had a good home life and home space to work in, lots of resources to access, and really, I didn't experience a lot of the virtual difficulties many students did. But this semester, I'm actually recording this presentation from Budapest, Hungary. I am abroad, and that's why it might seem a little disjointed video-wise. And this experience has really allowed me to gain a stronger sense of empathy and an understanding for what a lot of students went through virtually, as here I've gone through some of the greatest mental health struggles I've gone through in my life, personal struggles, and also academic struggles, as my university doesn't even offer tutoring. It's not something that is established here. And so as we worked on this presentation, it's really brought to light to me a lot of the issues that these tangible and actionable steps to address empathy in a tutoring center, how this can be really effective on students and how important this topic is to discuss, whether in tutoring or other aspects of life, because I like to think of tutors in a way as mentors, whether they know it or not. And I think this idea of empathy can be carried forward far beyond just the tutoring center, but the impact of empathy in the tutoring center, I think, is more profound than any of us truly realize. So we'd like to thank you for listening to our presentation. If you would like, you can scan these QR codes here and see some of the other anonymous responses to the questions that we've posed. And lastly, we would just like to highlight some resources and the tools we used in creating this presentation. And again, I would just like to thank you for listening to our ideas, and we hope that you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.